Hello friends and welcome back to Too Many Minis. My name's Ozzy. I just wanted to do a quick video today, run through a bunch of hobby tips, hobby tools, hobby items, accessories, things that I couldn't live without, things that I love. And you might know them all, you might know some of them, but hopefully there's something in here for everyone. This quick, I will do more in-depth videos on some things for sure. This is a quick run through of things that I use every day. Let's get stuck in. One thing I use now is I used to use a wet palette, but I don't now. I use a kid's Pop-It toy. I can't remember where I saw this online, but someone had the tip. It's made of silicone, you know, it's all flexible. It's very kind of hydrophobic. You put the paint in, especially from dropper bottles, it's great. When it's dried, you can just pop it out. I love that. It dries a bit slower than it does on plastic or something. I give it a scrub with a scrubbing brush to get it all off once every day or two. But I love the way it works. Like you see, you just get a bit of paint, pop it in there. There's less weights because it's not spreading out on a flat surface like on a flat palette. It's pooling, so you kind of end up using less paint. It's really good for mixing, you know, if you want to water that down. I love this as a palette. It would be better to have a white one, but I just nicked one off my kids, so yeah, they didn't have a white one. If I see a white one, I'll pick it up just to show colors a bit clearer, but I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's fantastic. And yes, wet palettes are great for blending and stuff, but I'm really happy with using these. While it's in my hand, the much maligned Citadel texture applying stick is a tool I really love. I use it to get paint out of pots, out of Citadel pots. I don't use a brush for that. It's great for that. It's great for mixing. And the number one thing it's great for me is my next item, all-purpose filler, polyfiller, pre-mixed filler. And you can get this from corner shops, hardware shops, almost everywhere. And what I do with it is I use it as a texture paint. Plop some out onto the base. You can get a bit of water. And this little spatula thing, either end, works perfectly for this. And any text, you know, you can use more expensive texture paints and stuff, which I do use. But this, I love using filler just to give bases a kind of unevenness. So I might have them, you know, sort of, so they're tilting one way. You know, there's an incline or something. Or if you wet it enough, you can make it really smooth. It's got a far finer grain than sand or something like that. Or indeed most of the texture paints that you get. So I think it's really great for just ground rather than gravel or something. It's just really nice. It's super easy. It's super cheap. It takes paint perfectly well. You know, you want to get it with your spray prime, but I love it. And it's so cheap. I use it for just about everything. Another tip that I can't live without now is reading glasses. Now my sight's really good. I am not short-sighted, long-sighted at all, really. I don't need glasses for normal life. I don't need glasses to read. But I use glasses for painting. And that's because as you get older, your eyes get tired. And pulling that really close focus is hard. You know, you're holding a mini 20 centimeters in front of your face or something. Depends. We're all slightly different. But that's a hard focus to pull for many hours. And I paint tens of hours a week, sometimes 5 hours at a time. And a few years ago, I found that my eyes were straining and it was tiring, and even I was having to sort of blink and close my eyes and I couldn't pull the focus anymore on the model, and I was upset about it. But I tried some reading glasses, and you know, you can get them from the chemist. You don't need to go and get an eye test. You can go and try them on. Just this is a plus 2.5. Go and stick your thumbnail up in front of you about the distance you hold a mini and try on some different glasses, a 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, that kind of thing. See what works for you. I did have an eye test last week and they said much the same. They said, you know what, you need 2.5 when you're working super up close. But I got them to really concentrate on, the optician concentrated on my close vision. It was really good to have that properly reinforced to me. I do have a slight astigmatism in my left eye, does more work than the right. So I am going to actually get the prescription ones, which are going to be 2.5 reading glasses basically, but with a correction for the astigmatism. So that's like going to be even better when they arrive next week. But I can't recommend enough. If you're struggling with the focus, if you're struggling with that, just try some reading glasses on. Absolutely valid thing to do and can help you, especially as you get a bit older. Another big tool for me is not this sharp knife that I use regularly for very sharp tasks that need a sharp knife. It's this blunt knife. This knife is so blunt, it's not cutting anything. Well, not cutting me anyway. It's got a snapped off end like most knives end up with. I've had this knife handle since the late 80s, Exacto. You can get mold line removal tools and that kind of thing, but for me, a blunt knife is better. It's more precise. It's a thinner. The mold line removers are kind of thick. The one Games Workshop makes, for instance, doesn't fit in well. A dull knife just drag towards you like that. It's not. You're not going to cut yourself. This is safe because this knife is not cutting you. You're just scraping, but it's a bit more precision than that mold line removal tool, and you can use it for a bit of cutting. You just put the force in. So I've cut that bit off, but then I'm scraping here. Lots of little scrapes is better than one big scrape when you're trying to get rid of mold lines. In my experience, the blunt knife is where it's at, and you can always create new blunt knives by having a sharp knife that you use that gets blunt. And I always keep a blunt dull blade on this one, a sharp blade on this one, and this one keeps its hat firmly on so I don't cut myself when I reach in the drawer for it. This one, like I said, it's not cutting anything. Maybe jelly or a soft cheese. Blunt knife. One that's probably a bit obvious is a painting handle. Now, you don't need to have a Citadel painting handle like this. I think it's quite clever. I like using it. It's super easy, right? You slot your model in there, paint. A lot of people use corks, or they use blocks of wood and put a little pin up into the thing. Some people will use those little blocks with the little clips, little mini clips to hold your model. Anything that works for you is great, but just removing the model from your hand, so you're not holding it like this when you're painting it, you've got it at a remove, makes it so much easier to hold it upside down, get under here, get there. It's really fantastic. I think most people use them, but if you don't, give it a try. They really do make painting minis a lot easier. To me, extra thin cement is such an upgrade on Citadel's plastic glue, in my opinion. Citadel plastic glue with its little applicator is okay. It can be quite precise, but the nozzle gets blocked, and while you can clear the nozzle by putting a lighter underneath a flame or something, you know, it's probably not the safest thing in the world to be messing around with flames in your hobby area. And this is fantastic. It comes with a little brush. It's really thin, and I think it improves you as a model assembler, because, you know, I've seen some people saying, oh, it's no good, you have to put loads of it on. You don't. What it does is it melts the surfaces. So you put it on the surface that you want to glue, it melts that surface a bit, and then you attach it. It's not the glue sticking it together, it's the surface melting, and then you're sticking two plastic pieces together. That's what you're doing. And I think, to me, extra thin is the one for that. The other thing you can do is use half, when you've got this down to half a pot left, fill it up with bits of sprue, and you can make sprue goo. And now sprue goo is pretty nasty stuff if you make it with like acetone and sprue in a jar. It's pretty goopy stuff. There's lots of videos online about making sprue goo. I prefer this. I use it for gap filling. Here we could use a bit here. So again, you've still got the applicator brush that comes with the Tamiya. I'm going to put some onto this join here, like that. And then top tip, get your regular cement and use it to just blend it in. Spread it out with that. And then you're not having big lumpy bits of it, which is because the brush with a big gloop of it on is quite imprecise, but you use this to smooth it back, and you're going to end up with some quite smooth bits. That probably still needs a bit, but it's great stuff. Sprue goo, it's really good for filling larger gaps. I much prefer it on plastic kits to using milliput, filler, green stuff, that kind of thing. It's just quicker and easy, and gives a really good finish as well. You can file it once it's dried, a couple hours to dry completely, and you can file it just fine. Like you see this bit here, we get a little buffing stick, and it's just hard plastic. I mean, it becomes the same as the rest of the plastic kit, so you can file that back, you can cut through it, whatever. So I've always got a few of these, one that I'm using for cement, one that I'm filling up and turning into sprue glue. One's another obvious one if you've heard of them, but if you use decals, getting some micro set and micro sol is essential for me. It makes applying decals so much easier. You apply this to the surface, you wet your decal, you place it on, then once it's adhered, you go over it with the micro sol, which sort of softens and lets the decal fit to the surface it's on, so you can put it over rippled areas or over curved shoulder pads or whatever. It makes decals kind of a dream to use, where they used to be a bit of a pain, a bit finicky. It's kind of expensive. I don't know what they're about. The final stage of mini painting for me is always a matte varnish. I use Vallejo matte acrylic varnish, buy it in this big old 500ml bottle. I put some out on my palette and brush it on with a brush, then wash the brush with some brush soap, and that varnish stage is just, that's it, that's the end of the model. You know, get a coat of varnish, maybe 2 coats if I'm worried about it. If there's some areas you want to bring back to a glossy look, then use a gloss varnish on top. I still use Citadel hard coat if I want to do, you know, like a bloody gory bit or a mouth, a wet mouth or something. I'll do that with a gloss varnish. And yeah, the brush soap, you got a brush, you wet it, run it round, get a bit of soap on it. I like to work it in the lid like this. Maybe you wet it a bit more. You really want to make sure you're getting the soap worked into the bristles, especially back up near the ferrule. And that's where, especially if you use little contrast paints, washes, or dry brushing, all those things take their toll on brushes, and you can really rejuvenate them with a bit of brush soap. Get a bit of kitchen paper, start rubbing it off. There's a lot of dirt coming out of that. Adding water, working it all out, and you've got a much more flexible, again, brush which comes to more of a point. Now, this isn't a great brush, but I'm just giving an example. It's great stuff, brush soap, and again, it's going to last you absolutely forever. This is the one I had recommended to me, B&J, the Masters Brush Cleaner and Preserver. You get this from most good art shops. You can certainly get it online. Here's one that I'd recommend even if you're not doing sculpting. It's a basic sculpting tool, but not a pointed one. It's not like a, you know, it's not like one like this which has, you know, a point sharp end, which is most of them. It's dull on both ends. It's kind of blunt, that end and the other end. And I think it's just invaluable for pushing around green stuff, filling gaps, even for applying decals. They say, you know, use a brush. Actually, I often use this to move it around on the model, the decal. It's not going to scratch anything unless you apply too much force. I use this when I'm gluing models down to just hold the foot down, and it's more precise than my finger. So yeah, recommend a blunt sculpting tool of some sort. And another massive one is tweezers. I think a lot of people don't necessarily see the value in tweezers. Use it for all sorts, for applying small objects that are hard to do with your fingers. So you want to add something to a base, blob a little bit of glue there, pick up the small bit and put it on. It's fantastic for that. I also use tweezers for painting with foam. So I'll get a bit of foam, grip it with the tweezers like that. This is a big bit, but you could use a really small bit. In fact, let's show that. We get a small bit of foam like this. You can use the tweezers to make the surface of the foam more irregular, which is good for getting a random effect. So then you're getting some paint on your foam. Dab a bit of that off, and then I don't know what we're going to do this on. Yeah. you know, it's great for giving texture, or I use it for doing damage on tanks and things, and you can even use it on a model. But yeah, again, the tweezers come in handy. Needle nosed tweezers are best. I like these side on ones, but a little collection of them is great. You can buy like a multi-pack. Tweezers, brilliant. I did a video before on my trusty dinosaur texture palette. He's recently had his paint pulled back off him. It's for dry brushing. The way I do it is you get a dinosaur, toy dinosaur, get your dry brush, get some paint on your brush, take some off, brush it off on the dinosaur until there's not too much coming off, and then you go and dry brush away. And it's, you keep the moisture, but you don't have as much on your brush. So it's way better than rubbing it off on tissue. You don't need to buy an expensive texture palette or make one. Just get a toy dinosaur. Steal one from your child. That's what I recommend. Almost hobby tools. Steal it from your child. And when the paint builds up, the best bit is you get your little tool and you stick it in under the paint, and it all just peels off in big lumps. Do a bit there. I've mostly done this one recently, but it's great fun. Another big one for me, a miniature vacuum cleaner. It's like a USB powered mini vac, like a desk vac. It's like a novelty toy for cleaning your keyboard or something. But I always have it around for when I'm doing exactly what I was doing before and scraping little bits of plastic off a kit. Just hoover that lot up. Less microplastics all over your workstation and in the places where it shouldn't be, and it can just go in the bin. Mini hoover. Something I can't go without is medium. I use this Instar Water Plus. I actually buy it in big bottles and then decant it into this small one that I had originally as a kind of taster, because this a drop from this is less than from the big bottle. One little drop, and routinely I'll put some paint out on my palette and I add one drop of this to thin it down. But you can use Citadel's medium, you know, you can use a more traditional acrylic medium, Winsor & Newton here. This is quite thick, but it does the job of thinning the amount of paint in the suspension, in the solution, but without just becoming watery, and it's just an upgrade on water. You can use water, but this is definitely better. And that's why I love this Water Plus. I think it behaves like exactly halfway between a medium and water, and I've never had any issues with it. I think it's fantastic. I just use it all day, every day. But the Citadel medium's fine. I hope some of those were helpful to you. Little things to try out. Let me know if you've got more tips in the comments. That'd be awesome. Put more tips down there. Join the Discord where we talk about how we're getting on with our hobby and all this stuff, and it's a nice group of people. It's free. Stream Thursday nights. Painting, modeling, chatting. Worth tuning in for that. And thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.